I would like to appeal to all our viewers, our listeners, to not be too downcast because I'm sure you were weeping and gnashing your teeth that we weren't able to be with you yesterday as we normally are. But here we are today. So better late than never.
Well,
Like that,
whatever.
is that true? These are
That
models by
certainly
which we
is,
live.
yes. Uh,
Anyway,
yes.
we've loads
A
to
day,
talk
a day
about.
late. Yeah, there's a
Were
lot to
you?
talk
Did
about.
you, Pat? I want to ask you this now. Were you watching the returns, election returns on TV?
Yeah, yeah.
Did you
I, s- I,
utter
s-
any
I, s-
words at any point as you watched?
Jude, I set up to what 2:30 on Thursday night, Friday morning,
Mhm.
and at that stage, I was starting to slow down,
Yeah.
as was I. But no, when the what do you call that? No, the poll of polls on
Oh yeah, yeah,
at 10 o'clock, when it said that they were predicting a 410 seat one
yeah.
for no, it was near enough accurate for Labour, and those sort of poll of polls or the closing polls,
Exit
they're
poll.
usually
Yeah,
exit polls. I couldn't remember the blinking expression. There, they're usually pretty accurate.
yeah.
And
That's right. I saw a thing which showed you the exit polls record over about the last five elections, and they were
uh,
very, very near every time. And to be
yeah,
honest with you, that's what I waited for was the election, the exit polls in the election. And when
uh,
I got that and I watched a little bit of discussion, I left it till the morning, I have to admit.
uh,
I just went in my bed
yeah.
and had a sweet
Uh,
sleep of the innocent. Um,
but you look, but it's a strange one, isn't it? The one thing that struck me, this is a landslide, right? Isn't it?
yeah,
Describing it as a landslide for
big
Keir
time.
Starmer,
Yeah.
big time, yeah. And he's got about 170 seat majority.
Oh, yeah.
No, he's up about 2 percentage points on Jeremy Corbyn's result.
That's
That is
fascinating. How does that
unbelievable.
work, Pat? I saw that
That's
article.
it's a and sure look at Nigel Farage gets about 4 million votes. Has party, and they've got 4 seats. They should anybody that says first past the post is a real democratic system has got to be kidding.
That's
Imagine if in a PR system, Jeremy Corbyn would have had a far better election wise than it is perceived these days. But I thought it was odd. Like basically, Keir Starmer has got a massive, massive, massive majority, was about a third of the vote.
I don't quite understand. I suppose the idea is that you must have, if you look at the Lib Dems, they returned 60 over 60 successful candidates, but they and they
Yeah,
went from 2 to over 60 because
yeah.
they targeted certain constituencies that they thought they had a good chance of
They got to do a chance.
and went
The
after
target.
those. I suppose Jeremy Corbyn couldn't have the luxury of that. His job
Yeah,
as the leader at the time was to go after all of the seats. But
yeah.
how is it that is it that the Labour Party is a lot more popular, or is it that the Tories are so much more unpopular, or what was it that made the big? Such a difference because the Jeremy
What is
Corbyn
it?
election was a disaster. This was a
Yeah,
huge triumph.
yeah. I remember Napoleon's one. Don't bring me great generals, bring me lucky generals.
Uh,
And I think Sir Keir Starmer's look as he rode in on the right horse,
we
without question.
you saw that coming though, Pact.
Yeah.
So it wasn't really that lucky. He must have
No, well,
done
right. Hold
something.
on. You've had three prime ministers in the space of and one term. You had Boris Johnson gets an 80-seat majority. He hands over to Liz Truss, who absolutely bankrupts the country in a space of about 49 days, 60 billion or something cost it. And
Yeah.
then you had Rishi Sunak trying to retrieve that. And then you had Partygate. No, basically, the Tories never recovered from Partygate, the COVID Partygate, and from Liz Truss. So right, and then of course, hey, look how lucky can you get? This campaign, Rishi Sunak doesn't discuss it with anybody. Comes out on a really wet day, looks like a drowned rat to announce an election, and the symbolism that you couldn't pay for it, Labour couldn't have paid for it.
But
Then he leaves D-Day early,
yeah.
unbelievable.
But it gave the tabloids some really good headlines, didn't it?
And then there was the betting scandal. So and then of course look up in Scotland, all sorts of shenanigans. The SNP, poor Jeremy Corbyn never got. Labour didn't hardly. They even won one seat the last time in Scotland. This time, what do you call them? The SNP has lost 38 seats. So Jesus, Jude. I think the detestation of the Tories. They were so corrupt. They were self-serving. There was PPE, Biden's, and they were. I think people were so sick of them, and all Starmer had to do was say nothing, do nothing, and you'll get elected.
But that what you've said now, I agree with you completely. But just for a moment to talk about Scotland, the detestation of the Tories shouldn't explain the disastrous election that the SNP had.
Oh no, the SNP, there was a different set of circumstances. All the financial shenanigans up in Jude, there's major question marks about money missing, about improprieties, etc., etc. I think as the former treasurer charged or is under investigation, there's money missing. There's I was going to say guardian police investigations, and there's a whole lot of things going on in the SNP. They have had 2 leaders in the space of about a year as well. John Sweeney there had to try and pick it up, and he says the people have lost trust. The other thing as well, Jude, SNP have been in power in Scotland for 17 years, and I don't think things have got that much better.
Aye, that's true. That's true. And besides, people just get tired. Even a party was doing reasonably well, which the SNP weren't doing. And incidentally, I must say, I thought John Sweeney played a blinder during the election. The run up to the election. I didn't know the guy, and I always thought glimpses of him that he really wasn't very charismatic, but he came across very well, plenty of integrity. But anyway, they did badly. So I suppose Scotland's a bit like ourselves here in the occupied territories. It's a very special case, quite different from the mainland or from England and Wales. What would you say, just to finish talking about the cross-channel election, what would your main takeaway, as they say now, what would your main takeaway be from that aspect of the election?
I think that basically that the Tories are almost in an existential moment. Jude, I think the Brits are so pissed off. Jude, everything seems to have gone wrong. Their economy's in a mess. The Brexit has divided the country. The Tories are seen to be so corrupt. Liz Truss just messed everything up. And I think anybody now with a semblance of decency, of competence, etc., and Starmer, in fairness, my opinion was Labour didn't have to do anything. It's a wee bit like, and we're going to obviously come on to it, Northern Ireland. Sinn Féin didn't have to do anything in this election. They just let the Unionists fight amongst themselves. Well, I think the Labour Party in England, Starmer was, talk about cautious, Jude. The man, I'd say, if he was coming up that corner in a car, he would get out and look around to see if there was anything coming. He was, before he'd go around it. Politically, he did nothing. He did absolutely nothing.
Well, he got lucky at one stage, and that is that it didn't rain on him when he went to make his victory speech in Downing Street, or Drowning Street, as they now call it. I was listening to it, and there was quite a bit of commentary on it. What were your thoughts on it? Do you think it was a good speech?
He's like, Julia, it was a good. I was watching him today. Actually, he's much more relaxed looking today. I saw him in Sky. He held his first press conference, and he looked actually much more relaxed. Jude, I get the impression, I'm repeating myself already, but the thing I think is, all he has to do, he said today that he set out to his cabinet that there's going to be no more of this looking after yourself. That it's country first, party second. And he says he's going to help hold people to account, etc., etc. And he says he's going to have targets. He says, and there will be, for ministers that things they have to achieve, and so on. And he says they will be accountable. Now, well, that proves to be the case. That's another matter. I've heard that before. But the thing about it, this day, and what was happening on the Tory party, I think every minister, every Secretary of State was allowed to say what they wanted to do with it. There seemed to be discipline, etc. And you know, Jude, I think the rot started under Boris Johnson. Remember the famous one? We will break international law just a little bit. Let's look at like a little bit.
Yeah, technical sense. Yeah. Well, I got the impression that Starmer is a bit of a control freak. So that was certainly the case in the lead up to the election. When he made his speech, a couple of phrases caught my ear. Like one of them was, "We will tread gently on your lives." Did you get that one?
I didn't get that. That's William Butler Yeats.
You know, tread softly before you tread on my dreams.
Tread on my dreams.
I just thought that was a bit corny. I was waiting for him to tell us that his father was a toolmaker, but I don't think he went quite that far.
But sure, remember Thatcher, the first issue, where there is disharmony, let me bring peace. Jesus.
Well, that's a good point, Pat. We should keep that in mind now, because that might be something we might need to revert to at some stage over the coming years. Because if ever there was a case of a golden vision succeeded by a grim, ruthless
reality
in British history, that was it. So let's hope that Sir Keir's...
Dr. Collins, what was your overall take of the whole thing?
Well, I knew they were going to do very well. I had a very good idea. They're going to do very well. Starmer made sure they did very well by not saying anything remotely. Like, in effect, in that speech, he confirmed that they were going to serve the nation and there were going to be none. Did he use the word ideology? That no question of ideology.
Doctrine. In other words, I think he used the term doctrine-free.
That's it. We're not going to be, in other words, we're not going to be socialists or anything like that.
Yeah.
You know, we're totally practical. We get rid of all this rubbishy old ideology that people have.
Yeah.
I thought that was a bit of a fraud, but it was in keeping with what he did all along. I don't feel any worse about him now. He, as you say, he seems to have thawed out a wee bit since the election. And I would wish him well, definitely.
I wish him well too, yeah.
The people of Britain have had a hard time.
I have a friend on social media, and I sort of had a piece sort of having a go at Starmer that he stood for nothing, that he had no principles, and et cetera, et cetera. And a guy came back to me, he says, "Pat, you don't live over here, I do." And he says, the detestation of the Tories is so unbelievable that anything is better than them. And basically what he's saying, anybody that approached being serious-minded, not a con artist or corrupt, who wanted to govern in a half-reasonable way, doesn't have to be, bells and whistles and bright shining light. As long as they're fair and halfway decent, they don't have to be a genius. And he says, basically what he was saying, even that half a loaf is better than what the Tories are. And for him, Starmer was that half a loaf.
I was very interested in you mentioned his speech. I really enjoyed the sort of what would you call it, the staging of the various ministers to be as they walked down Downing Street and in the door, each one in turn. And did you find any of them really impressive?
It's basically just a shadow cabinet, isn't it?
But I thought, I'm talking about trivial stuff here, Pat. I'm not talking about politics. I'm talking about, for example, who had the nicest outfit on? Which one? Go on. Right in the limb.
Rachel Reeves, I thought, looked particularly attractive.
What was the first one? The Deputy Prime Minister went in a green outfit, I think. God, it looked about 10 times too big for her. I tell you who I thought wore the nicest outfit, and that was Yvette Cooper. It was very elegant, sort of light grey and black. And she looked the part. But I thought many of the others were, if they're going to have their politics as bad as their dress sense, I would get worried.
Jesus, we're now commenting on fashion.
Well, you have to Pat, you're the man to remind me of the fact that I've always argued that the appearance of politicians is very, very important. And poor old Joe Biden is fighting that big time. We might get right to him eventually. Okay, let's bring this story closer to home then. What about the election in the occupied territories? was it? Tell us, if you had one sentence to say about it, what would you say?
That I'm sorry I didn't predict Ian Paisley was going to lose his seat. And let
No,
me tell you,
well, I wouldn't, Pat, I wouldn't agree with you. I would say, I'm sorry I didn't put £1,000 on Ian Paisley losing.
Jude, you know something? I was thinking about it last week, and this is stood up, but I didn't go. Remember, I actually was on Highland Radio and I was asked. But the back of my head, I was thinking, Jim Allister. I stood up. I'm not kidding you. I thought, hey, wait a minute. Nobody's mentioned Paisley, and Jim Allister is in there, and Jim Allister struck a chord with, and it's Ballymena. Keep that in mind, Ballymena and Ballymena. He's speaking to the Bible Belt here, and who's the more authentic? And I remember last week thinking, oh, Ian Paisley could be in trouble. Remember, he got sanctioned by the Parliament for his little. And he says, you know, they're saying, hey, big lad, and all that sort of stuff. And the people here love me and all that.
What he actually said was, I went to my constituents about, and you know something, they said to me, we like what you're doing, big fella.
Aye. Bollocks,
did you ever hear the like in your life?
You know, self-delusion, arrogance. But anyway, Jude, you know, I was thinking about that last week, but I didn't say it out loud. See, when
so we only have your word for it, Pat.
Aye.
You mightn't have thought
you asked me. Exactly. Because I actually said that I thought Gavin Robinson would be run pretty, what do you call it?
I thought no way long. We agreed that we thought no way long might pip that one, but she didn't.
We mentioned Robin Swan would do Paul Gervin.
Yeah, we did. We got that right. I was delighted with Robin Swan. That was really good news.
No, I didn't think Sarge Eastwood would take that was
quite a turn up. She got a lot of exposure, but for I'd say about 6 months, and then for the last 2 or 3 months, she hasn't been as visible. I don't know what the reason for that was.
But I just imagine Jeffrey had a 20,000 majority, if I remember correctly, back in the day, and then Sarge Eastwood the last time round. But hey, Jude, it's of course, supposed to, if you're asking the question, the splintering of unionism is actually probably the biggest thing to come out of it, because the DUP have lost 3 seats. Sinn Féin held on to all their 7. By the way, Jude, if I don't think I'm mistaken. I think they've increased their majority in everyone, as far as I remember. You know, and Pat Cullen, Fermanagh South Tyrone is no longer a marginal seat.
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more, because the last one was it 59 or something. The last time,
what was
59 or 57, and this time over 3,000. Over 3,000. That's one thing about the Shinners. When they get a seat, they do tend to hold on to them, and every one of them held on to their seats. And now that they've got a headlock on Fermanagh South Tyrone, I don't think it'll ever go back to the Unionists. So that will be less exciting, but it'll also be much more satisfying. It really was a bad night for the DUP, as you say. Like Ian Paisley Jr., although I think they maybe puffed that up a bit, because a lot of people in the Unionist, the DUP party, don't like Ian Paisley. And so some of them would be saying, good bloody riddance, we'll get somebody else in there. I think the Saoirse Eastwood's victory in Lagan Valley, that was really significant. And to have the day before that, or was it 2 days before it, poor Jeffrey Donaldson going into court.
The timing of that.
It was awful. I felt sorry for him. But I tell you, the one that I was very taken by was that they had to do a recount in East Londonderry. I know you don't like people talking about Derry. East Londonderry.
Imagine Gregory Campbell. He won it by 179 votes. And the other thing, there was obviously a Shinner in a real narky mood. He had a real go at the SDLP for not sort of standing aside. But the wee girl, Cara Hunter, she got 5,000 and some votes. But I think this he was a slightly bigoted Shinner. I saw on social media. He called the SDLP F and C's sort of thing. Which is not. By the way, SDLP is a legitimate political party, and it's a democratic party. They're quite entitled to stand. But what the point I think he was trying to make, which is, imagine if some of those votes had gone to what was her name, McGurk. Kate McGurk, I think it was her name. Imagine Gregory. That was, by the way, you can not from here on in, Londonderry, East Londonderry is no longer a safe seat.
But you see, I have a feeling that while what you say is absolutely true. Incidentally, I think Joe Brawley had a go at him, and I think Claire Hanna came back and rapped his knuckles for saying, he said something to the effect that that it was the votes of the that went to the SDLP that made it impossible to dethrone Gregory. But as you say, they're quite anybody's entitled if they want to run in any constituency. But it also is a fact. It also is a fact that I bet that the SDLP knew pretty well that they weren't going to win that seat. And they also probably knew that their running for it would do some damage to Sinn Féin. So it's the old thing. It's not the guys across the benches, across the aisle that you've got to worry about. It's the guys on your side.
I remember, was it a Churchill's one? He says, there's the opposition and there's the enemy. And he says, he says, no, the opposition sit over there. And he says, your enemy's the one sitting behind you. And politics, that's true.
Yeah. One of the things that confused me, really surprised me, everybody's been talking about the way the Alliance Party is surging, really changing the face of things. And Naomi Long, there's no doubt about it, she is a terrific speaker. She really hold her own with anybody. And I thought the debate with her and Robinson, I thought she was about 10 times as good as him. And yet she didn't win the seat. And while we got Saoirse Eastwood, there were plenty. I mean, Stephen Farry lost his seat. So maybe the big surge with the Alliance Party has begun to diminish. Maybe the time.
I think he could well be right. But just one other thing I noticed, I'm not know that he's psephologists, know they're going to all of our friend Chris as one and so on. But anyway, bottom line, what is the SDL or not the SDL Shinner guys got 19 and 20 and 21,000 votes? Big numbers. A lot of I think Carla Lockhart might have been the only SDLP person got over 20,000. A lot of Gregory Campbell got 11,000. Paisley only got 11,000. So they're not that great numbers. So they have, as I said earlier, in the 7 constituencies where they ran, Sinn Féin have increased their votes considerably in each of them. Now, that means, I presume, all things being equal, that means those seats are pretty much locked in now.
That's right. And as I say, the Shinners have a reputation for this. Once they get their hands on the seat, they make pretty well sure, or they do their very best to keep that seat. A thing that struck me, Pat, was a couple of the seats that the Shinners took, I didn't recognize the name of the person even.
I wrote down, you just had someone there. Where did I write it down? I've never heard of him. Jesus, wait a minute. Nuri and Armagh, Dara Hughes, never heard of him.
I never heard of the guy.
I wrote, you're ahead of me. You wrote down the very thing that I, Mid-Ulster, Cahill Shan
Mulligan.
I've never heard of him.
Never heard of him.
I had it down. No, all the, your Claire Hannas and your even your Chris Hazards and your whatever. But and they're not even the most famous. But these people I've never heard of before.
But isn't it amazing? I remember the first time when Martin McGuinness took the Mid-Ulster seat. I think it was Mid-Ulster seat. And who was the guy that was holding at the DUP man? McCrae said, do you remember his famous bitter speech? He said, you lie down, I'm telling the people of this constituency, you lie down with dogs, you'll get up with fleas. And now we have a guy, Cahill Mulligan, that neither of us have heard of, who's got a 15,000 majority, I think. And he's got 2 daughters, and their names are Aoife and Sorka. Now, if that's not in microcosm, you know, the changed nature of the North, I don't know what it is. It's not as if they've got a big
Absolutely.
push after this guy. He just wants home, you know.
Uh,
Another thing, after the straw that I said, I thought that Pat Cullen would win, but I said she'll not saunter. Somebody said she would saunter in. I think was it Chris Donnelly or something. But they were right, and I was wrong because
Hey,
she
by the way,
did.
Jude, I'm not, I'm open to correction this, but apparently when several after a couple of hours and Pat Cullen's constituency for Manchester, I couldn't remember the constituency there for a minute. Apparently, Diane Armstrong, the agreed Unionist candidate, she was going so well, she was predicting that she was going to win at about, I think, about 1 o'clock at night, and she must have got sort of arrogant, by the way, because there was still a lot of counting. Oh, I'm very confident now, we're on the right track and all the rest. But then after she lost again, she had to go with Pat Cullen again about this thing about not condemning IRA pass. And I thought, you know, you see, I keep making the same point. You know, this myopia that exists in unionist circles and loyalist circles about the role, you know, Jude, the conflict, and I'm not an IRA supporter, as I've made clear a million times, but there's a deep hypocrisy in unionism about the role of their forefathers in the conflict.
I think it's just politics. Honestly, I don't think they really believe it. I don't think that they see it as a terrible thing that
hold on, Dr. Collins, can I cut across you? One night, Ken McGuinness was on, as far as I remember, with Martin McGuinness on Newsnight, and they got into a very heated debate. And I've remembered this line. I'm not sure the context, but I'm certain this is what he said. Unionism has nothing to apologize for. This was about 19, maybe 80 something. Jude, 50 years of misrule, 50 years of discrimination, bigotry, sectarianism, economic penury for nationalist areas, you know, no jobs, immigration, people living, Bishop Daly told me, 27 people living in one house in the Bogside area of Derry. Unionism had nothing to apologize for.
Can I make a recommendation for anybody who's got nothing to watch, or even you have something to watch, don't bother watching it. Instead, go onto YouTube and watch Robert Key's Ireland Television History. It's got 13 episodes, and it takes you right through from the foundation of the state, and even before that, through the civil rights marches, through then the Troubles. It is superb. It really is superb. It's got such good film footage from the 1916 rising, from people in O'Connell Street, you know, Shawley's coming out and grabbing a few things out of the stores.
Yeah.
Everything. It really is one of the best. In fact, if I was in charge of a school, say a secondary school, I would insist that anybody who was taking history should study that. They should be exposed to that series, because it makes our history really accessible. And Robert Key is an Englishman, which is a good thing too. So that you have, you know, you're getting the real deal rather than some sort of, you know, hot-headed Irishman. It's just wonderful, and it talks about the kind of thing you were describing there, the 50 years of misrule. But there were so many good things that happened. I mean, another thing is, dare I say this, Paul Maskey comes from a very noble, almost noble family, the Maskeys. And I like Alex Maskey quite a bit. In fact, I like him even more since the time that Sammy Wilson, when he went to the Belfast City Council, referred to him as old lead belly, because he had been shot and there was some bullets still lodged in his body. I really like Alex Maskey. I think he was a very.
I met Alex. I was up in Belfast years ago doing something. Alex was a very nice one. And here's the other thing, Jude. And remember Alex, when he was Lord Mayor of Belfast, went to the Cenotaph against a lot of, and you know, as I keep saying, a lot of nationalist type, Republican type, keep reaching out. And when they do reach out, they're sneered at by the unions, and then they're sneered at when they don't reach out. You know, and by the way, remember the famous one, Martin McGuinness went to a Northern Ireland soccer match, and then when Arlene Foster was asked to go to whatever it was, a Gaelic match or a Republic of Ireland match, she wouldn't go. So, you know, it's anyway. I think
There
some of
is
us
a
sort of
begrudgery there, isn't there?
yeah.
There is a begrudgery. Tell us finally then on this one, Pat. The two SDLP people held their seats quite convincingly. I think Claire Hanna did it rather more, resoundingly than did Colm Eastwood.
She got 21,300 something votes, Jude,
And
which is a hell of.
How many did he got? I think he was trimmed back to about 4,000 or something, was it?
It's back to 4,000 or 5,000. We Sandra Duffy, who's a lovely girl in the Sinn Féin kind. I don't know Sandra well, but I know her.
Do you read anything into that, Pat? Do you read anything?
Well, there was such Sinn Féin. McKellen, I can't remember her first name. She had taken the seat from Mark Durkin. But anyway, there was all sorts of backgrounds going on in Derry, and there was all sorts of shenanigans going on in the background. So she lost the seat to Eastwood by 17,000 votes. Sandra Duffy has brought back a bit of an equilibrium. I think it's down to 4,000 or 5,000 now. 17. She was never going to overturn 17,000 votes. Not a open hell.
I would be feeling a wee bit uneasy. Again, it's the old thing. Oh, wait till the next time. Sometimes, the jam never comes tomorrow. But it is a serious diminution. I honestly would say, quite dispassionately, I would be quite surprised if in the next election, Colm Eastwood is still the MP for.
I see. We have 6 minutes left. Here's something I wanted to run by. I was reading yesterday. Moving back to the big picture, Sir Keir Starmer, number one, his campaign manager was a guy called Morgan McSweeney.
Oh, I saw about that. Cork man.
Macroom.
Macroom. As in the song about Macroom.
From
on the 18th day of November, and just outside the town of Macroom. I won't sing the rest of it. Go on.
Right. And he's big strategy guy. Sue Gray, who's his chief of staff. She ran a pub in County Down. I wrote this down, by the way, so I wouldn't. Her parents left Ireland in the 1950s. Her mother is from Waterford, and her father is from Fermanagh. Right, that's two. Pat McFadden, who was his national campaign manager, his parents are both from Donegal, who are both Irish speakers. They're from Falcarra. And Matt Doyle, who's director of communications, his grandparents were from Sligo. But here's the killer, best one. Apparently, Starmer used to go play an indoor football. And guess what jersey he had? A Donegal GAA jersey. And to Donegal quite a lot. I don't know how true this is.
You think Jim McGuinness give him a tryout?
A tryout. So there's a lot of Irish sort of thing.
Yes, now, absolutely.
Well, that will make any difference. And by the way, the other thing as well, as I think you pointed out last week, Dr. Collins, it spent time here as working for the Northern Ireland Police Service as some sort of was it solicitor or advisor, legal advisor.
That's right. Oh yeah, and then of course you can't forget Pat Cullen. Like we knew she was from here, but she was embedded as we saw it, and I saw it anyway, as the representative of the Royal Nurses Association or whatever. So there are a lot of Paddies over there doing quite a good job, but we're on this side and we're doing an even better job, I think. Let me see. What else do we want to talk about? Yes. Do you think that'll be what is no doubt a success? I was reading reports, and people were saying, some of the commentators or columnists were saying, "Oh, good night." I really have to admit that was a good night for the Sinn Féin, in sharp contrast to how they did in the South. Now, that's true. There's truth in that. But do you think there'll be any effect, any good wind to fill the sails of Sinn Féin in the South from their victory in the North?
Jude, I have, to answer your question this way, I have long held the view that there's two Sinn Féins. The party in the North is efficient, knows its ground, knows issues, knows how to get the vote out, etc., etc. Sinn Féin in the South is sometimes a despair of sometimes how they can balls things up so quickly. And there was an election here, local government elections, and Sinn Féin's performance was far from good. And by the way, and I can understand why. They had people up who were far from impressive. They certainly didn't get the vote out. Not like in the north, where it's maybe the specific circumstances of the troubles in the north has made them that issue. But I suppose that they're always on the ball in the north. They always have the right line politically, and the south they're all over the place. Like, I mean, let's go back to a couple of things. Like the riot in Dublin, I always thought it was absolutely symptomatic of how to read the room wrong. Mary Lou McDonald should have stuck to having a go at the raiders, not saying how inefficient the cops were, which, by the way, was totally legitimate, but it was the wrong time, wrong place, you know. And so
I think you're right. I remember you mentioned that at the time, and I was dismissing it and saying, well, you know, she was right, like it's the truth. But you're right, there's a time for saying things and there's a time for not saying things. And I would agree with you. That was a misstep.
Do you know the old one is, you know, a woman in their room, to use your own analogy, you know, a woman, and she's a terrible dress on. Do you tell her, oh, that dress is bloody awful? Or you just, oh, you look great, Mary. You know, what's up to you?
Yeah.
Anyway, sorry, I interrupted you there.
But maybe you see, maybe they'll learn that there's nothing like experience for teaching people. And if you have a bad experience, you know, what is it? The scalded cat avoids the hot stove, and it even avoids the cold stove after you've been scalded. Perhaps, you know, Mary Lou and the Sinn Féin people in the south. I mean, there's some very, very capable people in the party of the south, like Pierce Doherty and your man down from Waterford and
David Cullinan. You know? But there was a lot of missteps too. Even the whole Gaza thing. You know, you know, it's almost as if they were attempting to go middle class too quickly.
Well, that was an interpretation, all right, Pat. It's hard to know. Yeah, it could be, but I mean, we'll have to get the middle class vote as well. You know.
But to steal a line from Starmer, they need to do it brick by brick, not just, you know, through up a wall and an afternoon.
Yeah. Okay, but we're only a minute left, less than a minute even. Final word on Joe Biden. I was watching this latest interview he's given, and he was trying to repair the damage he's done. Can he repair the damage he's done to his own?
I don't think so, Jude. I really genuinely don't think. But he says, he got himself, will take him out of the race.
Would the best thing be to get him to drop out as quickly as possible and shove in somebody else?
Absolutely. I don't think.
And would you go with his vice president?
No, apparently as the governor of California. Apparently, I don't know.
He looks a likely starter. I'd be opposed to the vice president because she had such a low profile when she was in.
And she's so not
closely associated with Joe. They just have to. I can't understand people will they be afraid to tell Joe, step down. You've done a great job.
Time to go, Joe.
Time to go, Joe. Time to go, Pat. Okay.
All the best, Jude.
Right, thanks, Pat. Bye.
Bye.